very tenacious and hung in there and was very directed. And she ended up designing a couple of shows that I directed. I was the last director because the whole thing went bankrupt and that was the end of it. But Susan was a real contribution to the Theater of Living Arts. And she brought her parents down, very wonderful people, and met them quite a few times. And they really enjoyed that she was involved in something that she loved. So, as you all know from later on in life, whatever she endowed, she did with a theatrical flair, I do believe. And so I'm very happy that we're here today to honor her. And yes. Yeah, all right, so the spirit of Susan just reached up and says, pass the baton on to the next person. But that's my reminiscence of Susan, of the early days on South Street.
I had Paper Moon back in the day, and I had the greatest life anybody could ever ask by coming here from Miami to work on the Miami Herald, and I got seduced by South Street, and been here 40 years. And my great moment with her was last year, 2 years ago, when we had the South Street reunion. As sick as she was, she worked very hard, and if you can go to the website she created, it's phenomenal. The pictures that you can relive your life back in the day by going there. She used to come to Paper Moon to get fashion magazines and was very stylish. And I unfortunately didn't know everything about her style other than her discovery of lace as a great ornament on clothes. But after I re-met her again and learned her name, like nobody back in the day knew anybody's name, they knew nicknames for everybody. And I think the only reason I didn't say hello to everybody here was because I didn't remember your name. Not the fact you were any older. I couldn't recognize you. But she was a great force, and I 2 days ago I was looking through the papers that I had, and I saw the cover that we did, that we got in the weekend section with her in it, and that's how I remember to come here today and pay tribute. But great. Everyone's with time now.
Hi, I'm Dale Shuffler, and Susan and I were pretty close friends. You can probably see from some of the photographs up there, I'm actually that young guy and everything.
The hot.
I came to South Street in the late 60s with Garrick and Phil after having been living in Marrakesh, Morocco. Way before that train to Morocco by the crocuses and that. And where else would you end up after living in Marrakesh but on South Street? We went to the second-hand store, we bought 3 chairs, and we walked around looking for a house. And we moved into Gaskell Street, and then I started meeting people, and I went over to the Eyes Gallery. Some very brave people in the middle of the wasteland who had a little business called the Eyes Gallery. And I thought, hey, this looks interesting. I was an artist. I had gone to art school at the University of Arts. Now I'm in graduate school at Penn. And what I like to do is make things happen. I started, we started, a bunch of us moved into a little shop, and we had a craft shop called The Zoo, and there was an empty building next door. And George Beacon and I talked his wife and Susan into opening a dress shop. And we called it the last dress shop before the river, which was pretty funny since the whole block was empty. Except for these 2 little shops. And then we worked a little bit on the works, I remember nailing the floorboards down in the works, and then Rick did the Head House Square, and of course we went to there, and then we would fly back to Morocco and buy things, and Susan would make dresses and tie-dye. It was just one of those things that you make things happen out of nothing. And we were using materials, scrounge all around. And then these 2 friends from Morocco opened a place called Black Banana on 4th Street, which turned out to be pretty successful, as a matter of fact. And so a friend and I, John Westlake, bargained for the corner luncheonette, which was pink and white Formica with 2 tables and a counter. And we turned that into a place called Lickety Split. And Susan became one of the, I think she was actually the very first. Mickey, who was the third partner, was just taking another waitress to the train. And Susan and I were kind of joined at the hip in the beginning when she was at PTO. I don't know, it was a fun time when we could make things happen. Our lives, I got out of Lickety Split, wanted to do my artwork, eventually moved to Chester County where some of us are refugees now. And but we always stayed in touch. Every year the phone would ring 2 or 3 times and we would go through things like what's up with her. I mean, she was always amazing me. She went from tie-dye outfits to the lace in 17th Street or wherever, Spruce Street up there. And the next thing I heard was spandex, and I'm like, where's spandex? But she always had an eye for what's going to happen. Like I said, making something out of nothing. And then the last thing with the rodeo clothes and stuff. I'm going to miss her something terribly, you know. There's people from your salad days, you know, and I've been losing a lot of those friends as you move to 40 or 50 years, and you still talk to them every day, you know? And that's all.
Can we make it a little bit louder?
I'll try to project my voice a little bit. Well, I guess you just have to pay more attention to it. My name is George Keegan. I have a wonderful memory of Susan. You know, South Street is an extremely multi-dimensional bunch of characters. It was my wife and she who started the last dress shop before the river next to the zoo. They felt they were protected by these young, handsome gay guys. I have other thoughts. But I remember we went into the abandoned houses and took out wood for the waistcoating. When they shut up shop, there was a wonderful black open-air nightclub going on above the store. It was a wonderful time. I had recently come to South Street and was hired at the theater, the Living Arts, for $50 a week to be a prop boy for Tom Bissinger. And I had fled from Sun Oil where I was a rising executive. And I told my wife, I said, now that I'm a success, let's experience poverty. We did. It was fun. It was the most glorious time. But Susan, in addition to being a character, had this wonderful touch of bringing people together. In a small example, when I left Sun Oil Company, there was a man, my boss, who had taken a chance on me coming back from Southeast Asia, giving me this job, and he kind of tutored me. And I left in a huff, and for right or wrong. Susan had been dating this really handsome guy down on South Street. And she said to me one day, we were very good friends, we've got to meet this guy. Well, this guy turned out to be recently coming back from Turkey. His name is Michael. He had spent 5 years, I think, in a Turkish prison camp doing drugs. And Susan was helping this guy get back on his feet. If anyone knows anything about Turkish prison camps, he had a hard time getting back on his feet. It turned out the reason she wanted me to meet this young man because he was the son of my big boss at Sun Oil. And we repaired this human relationship.
I'm right here.
Susan went on to do other things. And I'll let someone else tell that part. Rick? No.
I wanted to get up.
Okay. No, we're good. Let's get up.
It has been for George. Experiment and see if speaking in different parts of it will make it better.
Okay. Oh, this is
If you speak into the top of it,
okay.
you're actually.
Experienced in this.
Yeah.
Anyway, George and Kathy let us know that there was a building that they
wanted to move into that was for rent. It was $135 a month.
We couldn't afford it.
Across from TLA. And so we decided to take the first floor for the work staff, and they lived upstairs, and Kathy worked for me in the gallery, and that's how we got to South Street, except for Julia and Isaiah also encouraging us to take that space. So I just want to mention that today I'm wearing this very lovely top, and I had a whole outfit, but I only put this on, that Susan made 10 years ago for me this week for our son's wedding. And so I'm happy that I still can fit into it and have it here today.
Yes. Well, the other part of the story, Susan was, I love that part that George was just talking about, that Susan was a person who could bring people together from all different worlds, and she did. And the 40th anniversary events, which a lot of us were involved with, were part of that story, how she created this incredible website that Bill talked about. But the funniest part of the story about George and Kathy was this. George, of course, was working as a theater person for Tom Bissinger, and he and Kathy wanted to rent an apartment on South Street. In those days, as you know,